but my name is Rennie Curran. I am a former professional athlete, keynote speaker, author, and the CEO of Game Changer Coaching. It's an honor to welcome you all again to another sports and business virtual networking mixer. I'm excited to have you all on here tonight to just learn about creating a championship mindset and really hearing from our wonderful group of panelists just about what it takes, how they've been able to separate themselves in their businesses, in their industry, and also what they do to help those that they work with as well. And before I get going forward, I want to just tell you all a little bit about how the Sports and Business Network got started and what the mission is, because a lot of people have come to the events in the past in person. Of course, with COVID going on, everything has changed. So this platform essentially started as just an idea, something that was meant to be small. For those of you who have been here in the past, you know that this started as just a way to just bring together a group of athletes and just to have a good time, to have a game watch party. Eventually, it grew to more so bringing together athletes and business leaders to create opportunities for collaboration, partnerships, and empowerment. And we had the first event, I think it was in the end of 2019. And then it had about 90 people, grew from there to about 150 people. Then the third event that we had about 300 people, and so on and so forth. So it just really continued to grow and continue to impact so many different people. So I just got more and more excited as this grew, and as I saw the partnerships and the relationships that were made, and it really encouraged me to keep doing it. And I'm not somebody who grew up doing events. I was actually terrified of events. So doing live events, especially now, with everything being virtual, you just never know what's going to happen. But at the same time, it's always encouraging and inspiring to know that, when you do put these events on, that it's so impactful, and there's so many athletes out there who need this platform. So as far as the Sports and Business Network, our mission, once again, is to bring together athletes, business leaders, entrepreneurs, investors to create opportunities for partnerships, collaboration, and empowerment. And my partner can't be on today, but my partner is actually Sharon Garner. She's the CEO of the Event Life. And then also our other partner, which is the Buckhead Club, they usually have a representative on who is Jeff Goldworm, who's their GM, but he couldn't make it on tonight. So we're going to move forward, but I want to give a special shout out to them and just say thank you for all their support when it comes to putting on these events. They always support us in terms of sending out the information to the rest of the Buckhead Club members, getting it out there, and then just really have always supported us in terms of providing the venue. So when we can eventually go back to being in person and seeing each other when it's not, the pandemic, that's where we'll be, is in the Buckhead Club on the top floor in Buckhead, of course. Beautiful venue. So if you don't know about the Buckhead Club, they have amazing amenities, and they really, really do a great job of just intentionally trying to connect you and help you to build your network with other business leaders in the Atlanta area. So if you, have not heard of them, make sure that you reach out after this and learn more about how you can benefit by being a part of them. I've been there about 2.5 years since I've transitioned from playing the game of football. And it's been awesome. It's definitely been something that's helped grow my business and my brand as well. So we're going to hop right into the topic. I'm excited to introduce to you our panel for this evening. We have the topic tonight, which is creating a championship mindset. As you all know, these are extremely tough times of uncertainty, times of just, panic in some cases, times where people are losing their jobs, things that we never could have imagined for this year happening, right? Especially with the pandemic. So what I wanted to do with this session, and this is going to be as engaged as possible. So I really want you guys to make sure you have some good questions that you're ready to ask, and that you're ready and willing to grow and to learn from our panelists. These are some heavy hitters. I'm excited for you to meet them. But we're going to give you some tips and tools to help you reach your fullest potential. So whether you're a current or aspiring leader, somebody looking to grow in your organization, whether you're that entrepreneur who's looking to improve your business, your brand, or someone looking to improve your mindset during these times of uncertainty, this is going to be a topic that I really believe is going to help you. And if you have any questions for me as well, feel free to shoot it either to myself to our panelists as they come up. And to discuss this topic, now I want to get into our amazing group of panelists. And we're going to start with Miss Cecelia Townes. And I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit about her, and then I'll give her the platform to share herself as well. And she is actually joining us from New York, in that crazy city. I don't know how she does it, but she's up in New York, and she decided to take her time, which I appreciate so much, to be on here with us tonight. So Cecelia Townes, or the Sporty Esquire, is a graduate of Howard University and UCLA School of Law. And as an undergrad, Cecelia was a 4-time academic All-American of the women's tennis team. Cecelia currently serves as employment counsel at Lyft, where she uses over 10 years of legal practice in employment and law and labor law to handle performance and disciplinary issues, employment policies, and claims of harassment, discrimination, and unlawful employment practices. She is also a contributing writer for Forbes.com, where she comments on issues related to women in sports, and she also created and runs Gladiators, an organization dedicated to women in sports and women who want to achieve their maximum potential. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Cecelia Townes. Cecelia, thanks so much for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your organizations, and a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you said everything in the intro, but am a practicing attorney, and really I started Gladiators back in 2012 as a blog, and wow. I was just looking for a way to get back into sports. I graduated like right as we were in the Great Recession in 2009, and I was kind of just looking for opportunities to insert myself in sports, but also I knew that I needed a paycheck.
Right,
so yeah, that's kind of what drew me into sports as an entrepreneur. I wanted to still collect my nice salary as an attorney, but have an opportunity to talk about and empower women in the sports industry. And the response from that was pretty substantial and overwhelming. We moved from just being a blog to hosting events, workshops. We have a mentorship program, and it's really all designed around empowering and connecting women in sports. We have a number of events very similar to this, where we just get women together and some men who are supportive of our efforts. We get them together, we host panel discussions, and we connect women through networking. So that's a little about what Gladiators is.
Love it. Well, yeah, I've definitely been watching you from afar. Love everything that you're doing, which is why I'm so honored to have you on here today, just to talk about mindset and the different things that you're doing just to empower women in sports and abroad. So thank you so much for being on. So I'm going to go on to the next person, which he's the man. This guy right here is a legend. He's a professor at University of Georgia, and I'm so honored to have him on today. And he's one of those guys who, like, every time I mention somebody, he's like, oh yeah, I know them like 20 years ago. Yeah, I know. So he's just an awesome guy full of tons of knowledge. This is definitely somebody you're going to want to hear from. And I'll just read a little bit about his bio. Dr. Paul Schempp provides science-based solutions, improving practices to solve performance problems and leadership challenges. A University of Georgia professor, he conducts research into the characteristics and development of elite coaches and business leaders. The author of 6 books, he's delivered over 300 keynote presentations in 36 countries on 4 continents. His consulting and coaching clients include Atlanta Hawks, Delta Airlines, BASF, Brooklyn Nets, General Electric, LPG, many, many more. I'm not going to read the whole entire list. It's a lot of clients. Currently, Dr. Paul is conducting research on coaching expertise, leadership development, and decision-making under pressure. So, Doc, welcome, man. So glad to have you on tonight.
Thanks, Rennie. It's great seeing you. And good evening, Cecelia.
How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, and I'd love for you to just share a little bit more about the work that you do and all that.
Sure. when I was getting ready to graduate undergraduate school, I wanted to be a coach. And like a lot of people, probably a lot of the listeners here, but certainly a lot of the people that turn on sports, they think coaching's pretty easy. I mean, all you got to do is tell the athletes what to do and they get it done, and you go home with some trophies. Well, I quickly learned I wasn't very good at it. And I didn't want to spend the rest of my career doing something that I loved but wasn't good at. So I went back to college. And Rennie, honestly, I don't know why I thought that was the solution. But I didn't learn to be a better coach. But what I did learn was research. And so when it was getting time to leave the university, they said, Paul, what would you like to study? And my answer was, it's not so much what I'd like to study, it's who I'd like to study. I'd like to study people who are really successful at what they do, specifically coaches, to understand what the differentiators are between the highly successful, the consistently successful, if you will. Rennie, I don't mean to bring up a bad memory for both of us as Bulldogs, but somebody like Nick Saban. Why is he so consistently successful? Now Dabo Swinney. And if you look at almost any sport, and Cecelia, it's the same in tennis, isn't it? It's the same people who are consistently successful. What is it they do? So that's what my research laboratory at the University of Georgia's attempted to do. We've been able to find some of those elements, and just in brevity, there isn't one recipe that fits everybody to turn you into a great champion, if you will. Everybody's going to be a little bit different, but in order to be a champion, there are certain ingredients you have to have. And we've hopefully been able to discover some of those. And that's what I'd like to talk with you tonight about. So,
awesome.
Rennie?
Yeah, well, I love the work that you do. Appreciate everything you just shared. And you're right. There is something to be said about those who are just consistently at the top of their game, consistently, creating results, whether they're a coach, whether they're a business leader, whether they're an athlete. I mean, there's, like you said, there's no, exact formula, but there is some things that we can learn that we can apply to our lives and to our professional careers as well, that I think can take us to the next level. And I think you both are perfect individuals to speak on it. So with that being said, we're going to hop into the questions, and we got a couple that I'm going to ask you directly that you have the opportunity to answer. And then from there, I'm going to ask you all just general questions that will be open for anybody to answer. So first up is going to be Miss Cecelia. So Cecelia, we all know that sports is one of the greatest tools when it comes to preparing us for life. So what are some of the mindset principles that you've been able to transfer from your athlete days as a tennis player into your corporate career?
It's like so many. It's hard. It's really hard to like narrow it down, honestly. I would say one of the things, tennis is mostly an individual sport. You play doubles and you strategize with your doubles partner, but it's really like an individual sport. And I feel like that requires you to be creative and to be very malleable. When situations aren't going how you want them to go, you have to, change the game plan in the middle of the game. And that's been super successful in my career outside of sports because, clients come to you all the time in different phases of what they want to do, right? So sometimes they come to you at the beginning and you give them one advice, and then next thing you know, they've done complete opposite, and now you need to sort of change course. Or sometimes clients come to you and they want to do something that's like not really legal. And so, you never want to say, no, you can't do that unless it's just blatantly like, absolutely not. But you want to be creative in figuring out ways to get your client from point A to point B and do it lawfully. And so that, for me, that has really required me to be creative in the way that I provide advice. I'd also say that sports have taught me to just be tenacious. I feel like that's probably one of the cliche things, but really does instilled in me the value of not giving up. It could be a very dark, bleak situation. And you just find a way to persevere. And I feel like every time I've pushed through, very dark, tough moments, it's paid off in the end. So those are two things. I'd also say, down to my ability to time manage and sort of project manage. I think as an athlete, especially, student athlete, you just have a lot going on all the time.
Right.
And for me, the way my career has panned out, that's that still remains the case. And so that my ability to handle school and sports and social life and being in different organizations, that has certainly transferred to my career, where I'm able to be an employee but also an entrepreneur and
Yeah.
engage in different volunteer events. So yeah, I mean, I would say those are probably three out of the many things that sports has given me that's propelled my career.
Yeah, no, I love everything you shared. You mentioned creative problem solving, being adaptable,
Yeah.
um, being tenacious, having that mindset of never giving up, always bouncing back, resilience. That's
Yeah.
what that says to me. Time management, crucial. I mean, I
Yeah.
talk to so many leaders, and that's one of the things they struggle with most is how to manage their time or how to be productive on a consistent basis. And
Yeah.
I think for so many of us, and the reason why I asked you that question is because a lot of times when we transition, whether it's from athletes, into the business world, or from, and if you're a business professional going into another industry, we can forget a lot of times those transferable skills and tools that we have that can really set us apart no matter
Yeah.
where we go. So that's
Yeah.
that's extremely valuable, everything that you just shared. So I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
I mean, I think that's a really good point. Not only does it help you, not only do those skills help you to transition from sports to the life after sports, but also make pivots in your career, which is really key, especially at a time like this
Yeah.
when, people really need to be able to pivot in order to stay afloat.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, so many people are transitioning, whether it's a career transition or a life
Mhm.
transition, they lost somebody, whatever it is. But I think it's so important, like you said, to just remember what you have, remember what's in
Yeah.
your tool belt, remember
Yeah.
your past experiences, and let that empower you. I think that's a big part of developing that championship mindset is just being able to recall, okay, what do
Yeah.
I have? Doing a self inventory. I always speak about that, but really making sure that you keep account of all the skills, the relationships, the resources that you have around you. And that will always, I believe, make you understand that you are at an advantage. A lot of
Absolutely.
times your environment may tell you, you're down or you don't have opportunities. Once you go back and you recount and you reflect, you'll always kind of be in that position where you realize, hey, I'm a lot better off than I thought I was.
Yeah. I was built for this moment.
Yeah, feel for
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
that's it. All right. Well, next we'll move on, Doc. Your question is, what are some of the biggest challenges that many leaders face when it comes to their mindset and performance, and how have they been able to overcome it from your research?
That's a great question. I think if I was going to use just one word, Rennie, it would be perspective. How
Mhm.
they view themselves and how they view the world.
Wow.
This was really brought home to me not too long ago. I've got a dear friend who is on the coaching staff of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Mhm.
And the morning before Roger was going to leave, I believe this was either late June, early July, to go to Tampa from his home to start getting ready for camp, I asked him the question, so what do you think it's going to be like coaching Tom Brady?
Hmm.
And I don't know how you would answer that question. I had no clue. And Roger said, it's going to be interesting, was his response. So a couple of weeks into camp, Roger and I were talking again. And I said, so what's it like coaching Tom Brady? And he said, I'll tell you something. That guy showed up
Hmm.
ready to work. He said, nobody works harder in camp than Tom Brady. You would think the guy is trying to make the team.
Hmm.
You would have no idea he's got 8 Super Bowl rings. That's just not the attitude he brings. And I said, so what's the influence on the culture? He said, he's elevated the
Hmm.
entire organization. And I
Wow.
think that's true with, you mentioned leaders. What do I do to not only help make this organization successful, but as a leader, be a role model? And I think Brady kind of epitomized in that way.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the characteristics, how the perspective you take.
Hmm.
Cecelia, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, your perspective, it really changes everything, right?
Yeah.
It dictates your future,
Hmm.
how you're going to respond or view
Hmm.
a setback. um,
Mhm.
really can, sort of make or break you. Um,
Mhm.
I
yeah.
love what you said about setbacks. You know, one of the things we discovered when we study these expert coaches is one of the differentiators is how they look at failures.
Mm.
The good coaches look at failures and they usually start to blame other people. You know,
Mhm.
like our players just didn't play or the referees didn't do whatever. I mean, you've heard all those excuses, not the great ones. The great ones look at themselves first and they
Mm.
say, what can I have done differently? They
Yeah.
look at it as a learning experience. There's nothing they can do to change that. That's in the past, but they know they could use that experience into the future. So you're right about how they look at setbacks, Cecelia.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's so key, like in our personal lives too, right? You
Mhm.
know,
Oh, yeah.
how we,
True.
how quick are we to blame somebody else for things not going the way we want them to go? But oftentimes, if we're more self or introspective, we can learn a lot and really change ourselves and our environment for the
Hmm.
better, all because our perspective.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. And that brings a quote to mind that I heard from one of the speakers that I watch and that I look up to, Inky Johnson. He always says, how you view what you do will affect how you do what you do.
Mm.
Hmm.
And I think that's so true. Just how you look at your situation, how you look at your whether you're at an advantage or not, just your beliefs and your view and how you look at yourself, like you mentioned, Doc. It really does impact your effort. It impacts your beliefs. It impacts how you
Hmm.
look at others. And I could think of so many times in my career, and I know so many people on this conference can identify with this, but when I got to University of Georgia, when I got to the NFL, like I wasn't that starter. I wasn't in that position. And so it's very easy when you're not in that position that you want to be in life to let that dictate how hard you go and the effort that you put forward. You kind of can take on the belief that I'm second string or I'm not getting paid this much, so I'm just gonna not go that hard, or that's not my job, or they're asking too much of me, they're not paying me enough type of thing. But once I started taking on the belief that I was a starter long before it actually happened. And I just started taking on the characteristics of a starter. And I started just having the perspective, I literally took the perspective of the starter. I would be 5 yards behind the person starting in front of me, and I would just be like their shadow. And after 8 weeks of doing that, like I eventually got an opportunity. And that always makes me think of just the power of having the right perspective when you're in different situations, especially when everything around you is telling you not to go that hard, or to just limit how hard you're gonna go. So that's definitely a powerful thing. I appreciate you sharing that, Doc.
Yeah. Rennie, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
You know, when you were walk-on at Georgia, who did you feel was responsible for your success?
Mm.
Without a doubt, me and I.
There you go. That is
Yeah.
a key characteristic between people, champions. They
Hmm.
feel responsible. Go ahead,
Yeah.
say something about that if you don't mind.
Yeah. And it
Nobody
started.
gives it to you, do they?
Oh, no, not at all. It started long before that. I mean, my mom's actually on here now, so she'll remember this. Uh, like going back to Little League ball, like my parents were working a lot, and sacrificing so much for me to be able to do what I did. So even back then, like I realized that if I was going to be successful, like mom and dad aren't going to be out there to pat me on the back and give me that rah rah speech. Like it was up to me to
Right.
make the best of the opportunity, and that just kind of became my identity, and my MO was just to make the best of whatever opportunity I had. And then on top of all that, I was considered undersized, so I knew that I couldn't lean on my height, or my ridiculous speed or anything. Like I literally had to maximize everything, and that all came back to that self motivation, just understanding that if it was to be, it was up to me.
Yeah. I mean,
Undersized. I still remember that 53 looking pretty stretched out to me. So, but
I stayed in the weight room though. I made up for it, but
there you
yeah,
go. Uh,
definitely wasn't the tallest.
hmm
yeah,
You know,
that's
but oh, go ahead,
no, go
Cecilia.
ahead. Go ahead.
It reminded me of a story. One of the people who's participated in probably more of our studies than anybody has been Coach Bobby Bowden
Mm.
when he was coaching Florida State. And by the way, thank goodness or thank God that Bobby got COVID, but he's now out of the hospital and he seems to be recovering well. So praise the Lord for that. But I was supposed to interview him on a Monday morning. Well, the previous Saturday in the afternoon, Florida State was ranked #1 in the country. Late Saturday night, they were no longer #1 because they had lost to Clemson University. And that enough should be, pretty devastating. But not only that, but the coach of Florida State was named Bowden. The coach at Clemson was also named Bowden. It was Tommy Bowden. So can you imagine not only losing #1, but also losing to your son? So I called the secretary and said, I bet coach doesn't want to talk to me this morning. She goes, no. He walked in a while ago and he said he was looking forward to your phone call, which kind of surprised me. So at the time, he was the all-time winningest coach in college, Division I college football history. Joe Paterno rightly has that honor right now. But so how do you start a conversation after this? So I started with, hey, coach, as the all-time winningest coach, you must love to win. And he was quiet for a second, which is a little unusual for Bobby. And he said, it's not so much that I love to win, but I'll tell you this, I hate to lose. So I said, well, what's the difference? And he says, well, when we win, it's because the players execute. He says, from where I stand as a coach, I can't gain a single yard, I can't make a tackle, and I can't kick a point. Right. So it's the players who deserve the credit for winning. So I said, what about when you lose? He says, when we lose, it's because I didn't have our players prepared to be successful. And that's me as a coach. It's back to responsibility, but it also is back to preparation, doesn't it? Which I think is another key to a championship mindset. How do I prepare for what happens? And I look at this time of uncertainty now, and people are asking the same question, aren't they? You want to say something about that, Cecelia or Rennie?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was going to speak to the point earlier about sort of this idea of, you're going to make it because because of yourself, right? Like I definitely experienced that. I remember when I was coming out of law school, I knew I wanted to get in sports, and I started like applying to work in athletic departments, at sports agencies, and any and everything you could think of. And I have promised I had never been rejected in my life up until that point, essentially, right? Like I was cool on getting into college. I was cool on getting into law school. And so this was like a real gut check moment for me, because these people were telling me they didn't want me. And I had to dig deep and say, but do you want to be in the sports industry, right? Do you think you have something to offer? And if your answer is yes, then you have to figure out a way to do it without these people. You have to look within yourself, figure out what you have to offer and who you have to offer to, and don't stop until, you succeed at that. And I think that's really, really like important mindset to develop, especially at a time like this, right? Like you cannot let your circumstances, you cannot let the people who are around you dictate your success. Like you are the author and finisher of your success.
I agree. And again, I think the champion mindset is you look for the opportunities in the adversity.
Yes. That's so true. And that takes me back to 2011 when I got cut for the first time. And I was in that similar situation where it's like, for the first time in my life, I'm being told no multiple times. I mean, I'm, like I said, self-motivated. So I didn't wait for my agent to call teams. Like I was literally calling Thomas Dimitrov and calling like, hey, I'm here. And like someone tell me straight up, I'm too short. And someone tell me, this and that. And eventually I got to the point where I'm like, similar to you, Cecelia, I'm like, look, if they're not going to give me an opportunity, I'm going to create one. And that's when I got into entrepreneurship and started, writing my first book and speaking and doing the things that I'm doing now, all because, like you said, Doc, look for the opportunities in the middle of adversity. And it's so powerful when you have the ability to do that, to have the right perspective and not allow like you said, Cecelia, your circumstances to dictate what you believe is possible and what you believe is, you can attain. So it's extremely important, because I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs on here right now who are listening, who may be dealing with challenges, and maybe you're thinking about pivoting your business, or your clients that usually work with you aren't as receptive as they have been in the past. So always be solution focused and solution based in your approach, you know, especially when it comes to dealing with diversity and change.
Hmm. I like that. I was asked about a month and a half ago by one of my clients if the question was, how do great coaches survive and even thrive under great pressure and stress? Because so many business leaders now are experience that. And so, you know, as an academic, I thought, well, I'll look at the research of my own and some of the others. And I thought, no, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to call some of the coaches I know, and I'm going to put that question to them. And one of the answers that I got, actually, I got it repeated a couple of times, but it first comes from, and Rennie, I think you know Jack Bowerly, our swim coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jack was also our 2008 Olympic national women's swim coach in the Beijing Games. He's coaching 5 Olympics. Wow. I didn't realize this, but he's coached athletes have won a combined 34 medals. Wow. I think he's probably one of the greatest swim coaches in Olympic history. At any rate, I asked him that. How do you, you know, under Olympic pressure, was the context I used, how do you survive and thrive? And he said something very similar to what you just said in terms of focus on the solutions. He said, you have to realize you can only control the controllables. Yeah. In other words, there's certain things you cannot control, like we can't control this pandemic. But what can I control? What's under my power that I have the ability to make a difference with? Yeah. And that's, he says, that's what we focus on with the athletes. For example, swimmers can't control whether they win or lose because they can't control who's swimming to the left or to the right. All they can do is control the things that'll help them be successful.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rennie.
No, you got it. I was just agreeing with Doc.
Oh, okay. So this conversation is making me think back to a sermon I heard. This was like years ago. And it was a sermon kind of about purpose and how you like identify your purpose. And part of what the pastor was saying was that you look inward to the gifts that God has given you and the desires that he's given you, but then you look outward for the opportunity, and it's kind of like a Venn diagram. And so you look for where your skills and the things that you love to do overlap with the need. Sorry.
In New York, y'all. It's all right.
I was just thinking, I was like, oh, we haven't had the siren go off. Like, I'm winning. Anyways. So, but that's where it overlaps, right? And that is where it overlaps is where your purpose lies. And so in times like this, I think people need to look inward at their talents and at their strengths, but then look outward for the needs that are there, because the needs are significant. People people are still in need. And so I feel like when you're looking for the opportunity to pivot, you are still able to use your God-given skills and talents and interests, but you're able to figure out ways to maybe service another group of people. And so I think that your purpose can shift with like, not your actual purpose, but where you effectuate your purpose can shift based on like the circumstances. So it's about perspective, right? So if you know yourself, you know kind of what you were placed here to gift other people, then that can be done in so many different ways. Like I tell people all the time, I'm a lawyer, but I could have been a teacher. You know, I could have been a coach. I could have been a number of different things, because my skill set can be used in many different capacities. Right. So I feel like for our entrepreneurs who are on the call, who might be trying to figure out their pivot, that's what you do. You figure out your talents and you figure out where your talents are needed, even if it's in a different industry than you're currently in.
Yeah, no, I love it. We have somebody who has a question for you, Cecelia, Mr. David Morrison, and I'm going to allow him to talk. I don't know if he's okay with being a panelist, but I'll allow him to talk to start. So, David, you can go ahead and.
Am I supposed to read it? Let me see.
Oh no, you good. I was going to let him ask you. So, David, you can go ahead and answer the question that you had.
How you doing, Cecelia?
Hi, David. How are you?
Well, you just made a comment or a statement, and it basically led me to a question that I wanted to have answered. Actually, I had emailed earlier a couple hours ago. I'm not too sure Ronnie had got it, but basically, how to stay focused on your purpose when you're struggling to gain capital for your business.
That's tough. And I I know it's tough because I am actually there with my side hustle. So Gladiators is a side hustle for me. And it's you know, basically right now my 9 to 5 is what sustains it. And that's very tough. Because it's something, you know, when you're feel like you're working in your purpose, you feel like it should also automatically be paying off financially. And, you know, I think I have to remind myself all the time that it's coming, but it's about perspective. And I look at the other ways that I'm being fruitful, that looking at my other forms of return that aren't necessarily financial. And so I feel like, you know, Rennie talked about this earlier when he was looking at the growth of the events and the impact of their events. It's been a similar situation with Gladiators. You know, we've started off small. We have hundreds of people at our events now, and I haven't made any money off of it. But I get these stories of women who met each other at my event, and like now they have a job, or now they form a partnership. So for me, I focus on that. But I also, David, would suggest that you maybe get creative, you know, check like the ways that you are currently trying to gain capital. If those aren't working, then you might have to pivot. And I would say, sort of, what do you do, if you don't
I
mind?
sell customized basketballs.
Okay. All right. So what about your purpose sort of dictates that's what you're doing? Like, how is your purpose connected to the basketball?
Well, my desire is to kids who are less fortunate. My desire is to, you know, be able to give them a ball. You know, basketball was a key element for when I was growing up as an adolescent. It kept me out of trouble, and so I want to be able to return that in some kind of way, pay it forward in some kind of way.
Okay. Well, I think that's super dope. Very admirable.
Yeah.
But I would also encourage you to figure out other ways that you could give that gift to kids. If the customized basketballs isn't working, I would say think about other ways that you could give the same gift, but also be profitable, if that makes sense. I mean,
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, that would be yeah. So focus on the impact that you're currently having, even if it's not financial, but also be thinking about other ways that you could fulfill that purpose, right? So
Absolutely.
I don't know if it's partnering with businesses who already have the capital and getting them to provide the basketballs for free, or if it's getting other, you know, members of your community to somehow help fund your venture. I think there's probably a lot of different ways. I'm not obviously not knowing what you've already tried.
Right.
But I think there's always more than one way to skin a cat. So I would say, like, start getting creative and really start telling more people about what you're doing. Because I've also found that that's been super helpful when it comes to getting sponsors. At our first summit, you know, we brought in like over $40,000 in sponsorship. And that was really word of mouth, telling everybody and their grandmama who would listen, this is what we're doing. This is why we're trying to do it.
That's great.
Okay,
I,
I
I-
appreciate
I'll
it.
add, yeah, and I'll add another thing too. I mean, along the lines of what Cecelia said, always focus, like when you're trying to grow something and you talk about getting capital, look for those win-win situations. So seek, number one, I would say, and Cecilia kind of touched on this, but find who's already in that lane, who's already impacting, you know, children who are underprivileged or who are lacking and whatnot, and see they may have a need for equipment, right? And they may
Yes.
already have funding, so that can be that solution that they're looking for. So really seek to find those who are already in that lane, and then always approach them from the standpoint of adding value to them. So creating that win-win situation. Once you, I found that like a lot of times when you approach people and you just looking for that funding up front, a lot of times it can cut off potential opportunities. But instead of when you approach it from the standpoint of, hey, can we add this in here? Can we add this as a resource that can solve a problem for them? And maybe it increases the number of children that they're now able to serve, which allows them to get more sponsorship, which ties you in. You see what I'm saying? So it's really a lot of times about being strategic.
Yeah,
Yep.
that brand alignment is key when you're trying
Yeah.
to get sponsorship dollars. Like I think people don't really know how to pitch themselves sometimes, right? You have to figure out what your potential sponsor needs and how you can help them. So maybe it is they want to have a larger impact in the community. Boom, I can help you do that because I got these balls, I got these kids. So just don't forget that you need to, when you're seeking these sponsors, you need to figure out your pitch. How are you going to add value to them, not just take money from them,
Right.
Appreciate it.
David, may I offer you an idea?
Sure, absolutely.
This actually comes from the coaches. I just talked about how they survive and thrive under pressure and stress. And one of their strategies was, and they all use the same term, peer support. And one of them told me the story in the 2008 Olympics. For the very first time, the United States Olympic Committee rented an apartment, and they called it the coach's house. So any Olympic coach in any sport could go to that house for a break. No one else was allowed in. And the coaches started to talk to each other about the issues that they were dealing with, and the level of support was phenomenal. So now we have that coach's house in every Olympics. So here's just something that kind of is very similar to what Rennie and Cecelia were just telling you. Talk to people with whom you have great respect for, and just start the question with this, or start the sentence with this. May I ask your advice? Rennie, may I ask your advice? I want to give kids basketballs, but I have to run a business. Do you have any ideas on how I could make that successful?
That's great.
And I bet
wow,
that,
awesome.
nobody minds giving advice, at least not the people I know mind giving advice. But after a while, they kind of become strategic partners, just what you were saying, Rennie and Cecelia.
I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. Does that help, man?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, nobody flies solo and flies successfully.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
that's such a good point to make, because I think, Rennie and I were talking earlier about, sort of we did this ourselves, but not really, right? Like our mindset got us there, but there are people that have helped us along the way in every capacity. So I do want to be clear about that.
Yeah, and just to even answer your question too, from my perspective of even how this was created, the Sports and Business Network. Like, I came up with the idea, right? And my purpose was to bring people together, athletes and especially those who are transitioning and looking for opportunities. But I didn't know how the best way to do that. And just like Doc just said, I went to the GM for the Buckhead Club because I had just joined as a member, and I just presented him the vision, and he felt like my passion for it and knew that it was authentic and that it was genuine. And then I approached it from a win-win scenario, like I just mentioned to you. So I was like, hey, what if we brought together the athletes in my network, those who need opportunities, those who need knowledge, with the business leaders who are members of the Buckhead Club, and then also invited out outside members, which creates, the branding opportunity for the Buckhead Club. And he was like, yeah. And once we did the first one, we had 90 people. We did the second one, had 150. Then, like, now all of a sudden we're talking sponsorship dollars. And so it didn't start at first, but like I said, as we built and as we believed in the vision, it grew and it led to that. So that's something to think about as well.
So Rennie, what you're saying is when you invite a professor and a lawyer on, the attendance drops dramatically.
No.
Basically.
I think everybody's zoomed out at this point. I think that's yeah, man. Well, any of our other attendees have any question? That was a great question, David.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Glad we're able to help.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Any of our attendees got any questions? If not, I got another good question to ask our panelists. We'll go ahead and give them one and let you guys get a chance to think up some good questions. So let's see. Since we have a lot of entrepreneurs and those who are aspiring on here. What is one of the best pieces of advice you can give when it comes to time management and increasing productivity? Because I think we're all trying to do that right now.
For me, I know that I am a list person, and I am not going to be as productive as I can be if I don't have the running list of things to do right in front of me. And for me, like, I know I just get pure pleasure out of crossing something off of the list. Like, that drives me to keep going. So for me, I would advise people to have a to-do list. There you go. Yep. Yep. Because yeah, I just think that's super helpful. And then I would say you have to learn to prioritize, right? Because everything on the to-do list isn't of equal importance. It's not the size and the bandwidth that it requires isn't the same. And so I think you have to prioritize for me, I try to do like urgent, important, and then sort of everything after that. So if something is super urgent and super important, that has to get done immediately. If it's urgent but not as important, we can get that done second. And then if it's important, like, it just kind of goes down from there. So that's how I feel like I can, make a list, and it helped me be productive, but also like manage my time in the way that it needs to be managed.
That's great. Love, you got anything to add to it?
Of course he does.
Yeah, I've got two, actually.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. I don't know about that. I'll give you two. One goes counter to our culture. We hear that the harder you work, the more successful you'll be. That is not true. We all know people who work, and I bet many people on this call work very, very, very hard and are having a difficult time being successful, no matter how hard they work. You need to rest. Even God on the seventh day rested. And we don't do enough of that in our culture. And like Thomas Edison, for example, he would work for 4 hours and then he would sleep for 15 minutes to an hour. He had a bed in his lab. We've got to rest and recharge. And Cecelia, I don't know how you do that in New York City with those fire engines going by all night long. But we don't do enough of that. So, thinking you work 80 hours a week is not going to make you successful. You got to work more efficiently. So think about working in some rest times. What do you need to do? Maybe go for a walk outside, 15, 20 minutes. And I'll give you another one. Work when you're most productive. We all have a cycle of some kind. I call it our time sweet spot. For me, it's early in the morning. I work best from about 8 o'clock to 10:30. So if I've got to do something important, like work on a presentation or write an article or something, that's my best time to do it. My worst time is normally about 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. My brain's just dead. So if I need to do email, great time to do it, or have a meeting, that's when I do it. So align the things that you can do that are most important in the time that you're most ready. And let me give you an example. Think about reading a book. We've all read books when we're really tired. It might take us like an hour to read a chapter. Right. Well, if we're rested, it might take us 15, 20 minutes to read that very same chapter, and we remember more.
Yeah.
So in terms of efficiency or productivity, time management, think about what you have to do. Cecelia, I liked what you said about priorities. Make sure those priorities get their attention when you're most able to give them your best attention.
Yeah, that's spot on. I want to add two things based on what you said, Doc. One is that this idea of rest. I mean, you can't like shout that from the mountaintops loud enough. And so for me, like, rest has to happen. Yeah, I take a full day to not work, but it's also important to rest and recharge like on a daily basis. And for me, I know that means I have to wake up earlier, get my prayer, my meditation, my quiet time in. And it's like I am actually active in a way, but I am still resting, like my spirit is resting and getting recharged. So I would encourage people to like definitely find their practice that gives them that. And then the other thing, I might have lost it. So to echo this idea that, doing things tired is inefficient. But, the other thing in society that I think has wrong is this idea of multitasking. Like, our brains do not are not able to multitask. And I think we can all be more efficient if we would just take the time to focus on one thing at a time, rather than, you know, trying to focus on 2 or 3 things. I think, you know, you can get that document read quicker if you just focus on reading the document instead of reading, then hopping to text message, then looking at TV, then, you know, all of these other things to distract you.
Great point.
Yeah. You guys get some powerful information right there, and love what you said, Doc, about resting. I totally agree, and you know, working and going at your task when you're most alert. That's super powerful, and something that I definitely didn't remember, because I'm one of those. I take that football mentality, and I'm like, I'm gonna go until I can't go anymore. Like, I'm running through this brick wall, and I'll fight myself like I'm dozing off and still trying to go. Yeah, exactly right. And one thing too that that really helped me early on as an entrepreneur, because as you all know, it can be a battle, like just to keep focused, like just to stay off the phone and not go on the emails and do all those different things. I borrowed this from just my life as an athlete, which was just tracking my time, actually having an itinerary. Like, and the saying goes, if you don't track it, you can't improve it. So just knowing, you know, on a daily basis, where are you spending most of your time? You know, are you spending 30 minutes in the morning having an actual routine? Are you spending an hour or 5 hours on your phone? Are you know, where can you save time? What are some things that are leading or inefficient activities? Right. So that's one of the things that has really helped me. But I love what you said about knowing yourself, knowing like what are those peak times that you are most productive and most alert. I think that is crucial, and I'm definitely gonna apply that as well. So yeah. So looking for some more questions for our attendees. Y'all are quiet, boy. Man.
Rennie, can I share a recent study that we published? We did a study with expert strength and conditioning coaches, and we had all but 2 of them, strength and conditioning coaches from the National Football League, the National Hockey League, Major League Baseball, and the NBA. Yeah. All the head strength and conditioning coaches. And we said, what are the skills of an expert coach? And we said general, not just strength and conditioning. Yeah. You'll never guess what the #1 skill was that they said for an expert coach. You want to guess? What would you say, Cecelia? You know coaches. #1 skill.
I have no clue.
I'm thinking it's time management, or like being efficient with their time, as far as like how they handle their practice schedule and how they manage those things. That's what
I would have said the same thing, or communication, or planning, or humility.
Ooh.
Wow.
Humility. In fact, Rennie, you know, in your book, you have a chapter, you know, on free agent. You have a chapter on pride and humility. And I actually, if you don't mind, I thought you put it better than anybody else I did. So I actually wrote it down. Can I share it with you?
I'm trying to gas you up.
No. This makes the point better than I've ever heard it, Rennie. Wow. You wrote, if pride is the lock that closes the door of opportunity, humility is the key that opens the door to infinite personal growth. Wow. Later in the chapter, you said humility is especially important when you realize your talent in life. It forces you to continually work at your craft, because you know there's always someone else who has the same amount of talent as you. And it reminded me of a story.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah, free agent, Cecelia. I'll send you one for Christmas. Actually, I know the author. Maybe I can get a free copy for you. But it reminded me of a story that Bowerly told me about Michael Phelps. In 2016 was his last Olympics in the Rio Games. Do you know where he was Christmas morning 2015? In the swimming pool. Because his training partner was Georgia Bulldog, Allison Schmidt. I don't know if Allison was there. Yeah, same time you were, Rennie. Yeah. So Allison and Michael used to train together, and they were there like at 6 o'clock in the morning, Christmas morning. Wow. And they trained for 2 hours, and then they went with their families to celebrate Christmas. And when the coach, when Bowerly asked Phelps, what are you doing there Christmas morning? He said, I know there are other athletes who want to beat me in Rio. and they're training today.
Mm.
But it's just
Wow.
what you said. It's humility,
Yeah.
isn't it? You know, there's other people that have the same talents, maybe even more talent than you have, maybe more opportunity, maybe more resources. So the humility allows you to step back and do the things that you need to do, the work nobody wants to do, that's really going to make you successful.
Yeah. My humility definitely stemmed from that understanding and that belief. And then also, I mean, my faith as well too. I just always believe that, you know, God will bless my humility. And if I ever did get prideful, I'll get humbled real quick. And I did not want to be humbled by God. So, so like, let me chill. So, yeah, that's always been my part of my motivation for remaining humble and always looking for ways to grow and learn and whatnot. And I want to ask you all one more question because we are at that 8 o'clock mark. We had such an amazing conversation. I wish we could keep going. What advice would you give to people who, right now, who have that negative mindset or have limiting beliefs?
Cecelia, would you?
I would just say, what's the old saying? If you think you can't, you won't. It's something to that effect. But like your mindset is like, you know how they say your net worth is your network is your net worth. It's like, it's very similar with your mindset. Like you're not going to go any further than you can believe that you're going to go, right? And
Yeah.
so I would say, if you have that negative mindset, you know, you can change it. And one of the ways I think has been helpful to people that I know is like repetition, right?
Mm-hmm.
So figure out what your mantra needs to be, and say that every day, multiple times a day, to yourself in the mirror until your mindset changes. Because the more you say it, the more you will internalize it, and then the world around you will shift.
It's real.
That's
Love
great.
it.
Yeah. For me, if I can quote my mom,
Mm-hmm.
she used to tell me, Paul, in your darkest moments, count your blessings and you'll see the light.
Wow. That's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
That is powerful. I definitely, I mean, these are the times where we definitely have to count our blessings, and even in the smallest things, we have to look around and just, you know, count it as joy. You know, even my challenges, I try to count that as joy as well too, and as a blessing, because there's some challenges that we have in our life that some people wish they had, right?
That's right.
Like if your car is giving problems, like some people don't even have a car to worry about, right? To worry about the, you know, the price of the repair or whatever. Like, so a lot of the challenges and the so-called negative things are actually blessings, or part of our blessings. So yeah, that's powerful. So I'm gonna end it there on a positive note. And last but not least, I want to first have our panelists just give us your closing thoughts and then tell the audience how they can get in touch with you as well.
All right. My closing thought is really just keep the faith. Like keep the faith in yourself, keep the faith in your higher power, in God, and know that you know, no matter what the circumstance is around you, like you can sort of succeed in spite of. So yeah, just trust the process. That's a part of the building the championship mindset. And if you want to get in touch with me, please hit me up on LinkedIn, Cecelia Townes. I'm also on the Gram and Twitter and all of the social media. I think my email address is like on my Instagram, but it's info@ceceliatownes.com. I'm always open to connecting with people.
Awesome. And guys, I'm so sorry I cannot let this last question go. I totally missed it. It's from my homegirl Jamia Bird. She's a dog. So do you guys have time to answer this last question?
Sure.
I don't have anywhere to go.
All right. So I'm gonna turn Jamia.
And it's quiet in New York.
And it's quiet tonight.
Jamia, what's going on?
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been so awesome. Thank you guys so much for this.
Yeah, no problem. We're so glad to have you on. You somebody who's always supportive, you know, no matter what events I have. So I really appreciate you being on, and I'm excited to hear your question.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So my question is, how do you close the deal when you've garnered the interest? So my business, we've experienced a lot of situations where we've like, had positive feedback and, then the deal doesn't get closed. So how do you close the deal when you've garnered the interest?
You want to go first, Doc, or you want me to go first?
You can go, Cecelia.
I would say that you have to be relentless with your follow-up. When I feel like I have interest, one of the things that we make sure we do, especially with sponsors, is like we follow up immediately. And we'll be direct in asking questions about like, well, what are your reservations? If we hang up the phone and it's not a definite yes, my first question is, well, why not? What's holding you back? And I really try to come up with a solution for that. So I think that's probably my advice, is to like not let too much time go in between you realizing that there's interest and sealing the deal. Like you have to, like if you think about the car salesman, right? Like they got you in the door, so they already know you're interested and they're going to be on you like white on rice until they get either a yes or a no. And to me, that's what I'm looking for. And when I'm trying to close a deal, I'm looking for a definite. And I'm not going to stop interacting with you. I'm not going to get out of your face until I have a yes or a no. So that would be my advice.
Great, thank you.
That is great. Yeah, fairly similar. When I first started doing professional speaking, Rennie and I both do that to organizations and associations. I wasn't getting booked a lot, and I was talking to another speaker, and they asked me this question. They said, well, are you asking for the sale? I said, what do you mean? They said, do you tell them that you'd like to speak to their organization, and how can you make that happen? Well, as soon as I started doing that and saying, I'd like to speak to your organization, I think my message would resonate with your members. How do we make that happen? I started closing a lot more sales, or they quickly told me, to Cecilia's point, no, we're not looking for a speaker, or you're not really the kind of person we're looking for, which saved me a lot of time. Yeah. So ask for the sale.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So thanks once again, Jamia, for your question. And Dot, go ahead and give us your thoughts and how the audience can get in touch with you.
Sure. Closing thoughts. I'm thinking must be my Bobby Bowden night. Again, I'd like to close with something he told me. When I was interviewing him, I said, as an expert coach, and he said, stop. I am not an expert coach. I said, well, if you don't think of yourself as an expert, how do you think yourself? Well, how do you think of yourself? And he says, I'm a work in progress. If I'm no better tomorrow than I was yesterday, do you think I'm going to be winning football games? I'm a work in progress. And all the people that I know are at the highest level of either business or sport or even in life look at themselves as a work in progress. They're always trying to learn. They're always trying to improve. Doesn't mean they're unhappy. It means they always think that tomorrow can be a brighter day. And so I need to work on that today. And how to get in touch with me, you see the name, just Google Paul Schempp, or my website is performancemattersinc.com. Information is there. So we'll leave it with that. Rennie, thank you for the opportunity. And Cecelia, it was delightful to be with you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm gonna launch this live tomorrow, or sometime during this week or next week. So it'll be on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and all that good stuff. And now, before I close this out, we got 2 winners for the night, lucky winners that are going to win these headphones. Y'all are going to get some too. I didn't tell y'all that, but y'all going to get some for being panelists. Yeah, so y'all going to be balling with your Jabra headphones.
Nice.
So our first winner, and I'm not biased, y'all, at all. See, this is why I don't like to choose who gets it, because then people think I'm biased. So I'm going to give these to Jamia, just because she's such an amazing person and got a great question as well. So Jamia, congratulations. Hit me up, and you're going to be happy when you get these headphones. They are amazing. And let's see. Oh, yeah. No problem. The next winner that we have is I'm gonna go with Mr.
He just
Jared.
raised his hand. Oh, my bad. Let me be quiet.
Yeah. Somebody raised their hand. Oh, it's me. So Jared Burgess is gonna be our second winner. So Jared, congratulations on that, winning these headphones. So message me, email me at info@renniecurran.com. Send me your address and we'll get that out to you. So for everybody who joined tonight, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for listening. My final thoughts is when it comes to having a championship mindset is, and I was kind of stuck on this one. It's a mixture between having that growth mindset and then having the mindset of abundance. You know, that's something that has really helped me in my business and just staying positive and continuing to move forward regardless of the circumstances. Is just like really having that belief and like that certainty when it comes to just the good things that are to come, and just waking up every single day and trusting in the fact that, like, you know, I'm only one relationship. Like I connected with Doc like maybe 3 months ago or something.
Yeah.
And it just was by happenstance from a relationship that I made 5 years ago. So just being in that, operating that mindset that I'm only one relationship, one opportunity, one phone call, one email, one social media post from everything in my life changing. And that's something that has really given me that championship mindset and allowed me to surpass whatever is going on around me. So I'll leave that with you all. And thank you all so much. Once again, we're going to be doing this again next month. We're going to have a new topic and a great group of panelists as well. And if I can help you all, you can reach me through my website, renniecurran.com, on social media as well, at Rennie Curran, and on Twitter at renniecurran53. So with that being said, thank you all so much for joining me on the Sports and Business Virtual Network Mixer, and I will see you all next time.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Rennie.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's talk soon.
Oh, yeah, we definitely will.
Maybe Friday.
Yes, sir.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, bye now.